The US election is 9 days away, and Donald Trump is not just ahead in the polls in all of the swing states, but he's now ahead in the polls for the popular vote, and the left-wing media simply cannot handle it. We heard the attacks from Kamala Harris last week, calling Donald Trump a fascist and linking him to Hitler, but outlets like MSNBC cannot let that sick narrative stop there. They have to keep the fear going. Watch this clip from MSNBC of Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City and how they try to link it to a Nazi rally from more than 8 decades ago.
But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally, a rally where speakers voiced anti-Semitic rhetoric from a stage draped with Nazi banners.
And you wonder why people don't trust the mainstream media anymore. That is disgusting. And the so-called journalism that MSNBC is doing over there looks like a copy and paste job from the Democrat scare campaign.
Go do your Google on this. Donald Trump's got this big rally going at Madison Square Garden. There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they're doing.
And Barack Obama still can't figure out how the rhetoric in this election campaign became so toxic. What the hard left media is not telling you about this rally in Trump's home state is that Madison Square Garden has held a number of different conventions for both Republicans and Democrats. It's where JFK had his famous 45th birthday, where Marilyn Monroe sang to him. And it should go without saying that it's arguably New York City's most iconic venue, known for Knicks games and Billy Joel concerts. But Tim Walz and the mainstream media appear to have a sick obsession with trying to link Trump to Hitler, and I don't think it's ever going to stop. You know who was in the audience at Madison Square Garden watching Donald Trump speak? Holocaust survivor Jerry Wartski. He was there, along with other Jews proudly waving the Israeli flag. It just shows you what a joke MSNBC is. Over the weekend, Holocaust survivor Jerry Wartski spoke out. He's had enough with the lies coming from the Democrat Party. He spoke to the New York Post about the comments Kamala Harris made comparing Trump to Hitler. And his message is so powerful, I think everyone in America needs to hear it. Not only does he share part of his story, which is heartbreaking, he calls out Kamala Harris for her disgusting scare tactics, and he wants an apology.
My name is Jerry Wartski. I'm 94 years old and survivor of Auschwitz and the death marches. Adolf Hitler invaded Poland when I was 9 years old. He murdered my parents and most of our family. I know more about Hitler than Kamala will ever know in 1,000 lifetimes. For her to accuse President Trump of being like Hitler is the worst thing I've ever heard in my 75 years living in the United States. I know President Trump, and he would never say this, and Kamala Harris knows this. She owes my parents and everybody else who was murdered by Hitler an apology for repeating this lie.
Why do we have to get to this point where Holocaust survivors are fact-checking Kamala Harris? Jerry Wartski went on to say that Donald Trump has always stood with the Jewish people and the people of Israel.
I believe that President Trump is definitely going to be good for Israel because in everything that he's done up to now was in favor. He never double-crossed anyone and he never showed any weakness.
There you go. At Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden, speakers such as retired WWE fighter Hulk Hogan called out the media and the Democrats for their attacks against Donald Trump and his supporters.
I don't see no stinking Nazis in here. I don't see no stinking domestic terrorists in here. The only thing I see in here are a bunch of hard-working men and women that are real Americans, brother.
Last week, commentator Alex Stein joined Power Hour for his take on why the attacks on Trump are getting uglier as we get closer to Election Day. Joining us now is comedian Alex Stein. Alex, great to see you. Let's get straight into the comments from the woman who is no longer the favourite to win this election. Here she is.
This is a window into who Donald Trump really is. From the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. And it is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist.
Alex, does this sound like someone who believes they can win the election because they're the best person to lead or because they have the best policies? Or actually, is it someone who will go to extreme lengths to smear their opponent?
Well, I mean, obviously it's the latter. Kamala Harris will compare Trump to Hitler, which they think that what they're doing is trying to demonize Hitler. Excuse me. What they think they're doing, they're trying to demonize Donald Trump, but they're humanizing Hitler, who wanted to mass exterminate millions of people. Yeah. And Donald Trump doesn't want to do that. Donald Trump wants to save people. He didn't start any wars when he was president. So it's absolutely absurd how they use this rhetoric and compare him to the worst human being in world history when Donald Trump loves America and he loves this country. And Kamala Harris, I cannot say the same for her. I don't think she loves America like Donald Trump does.
Well said. Kamala Harris is doing interviews now really because she has to. She can't hide anymore. And she was asked by NBC News why she's performing so poorly with men. Let's take a listen.
Right now, there is a big gender gap in this race. Fewer men support you right now than they did President Biden. Some of your allies have suggested there's sexism at play. I wonder, do you think there is sexism at play here?
Let me just tell you something. You've come to my events, and you will see there are men and women at those events, whether it be small events or events with 10,000 people.
Alex, why is she performing so badly with men?
Well, because she's untalented. It has nothing to do with the fact that she's a female. It's just that, you know, you look at her history and where she got to, become the attorney general, her relationships with men. I mean, some people here in America create a narrative that she might have used her sexuality to make it. And a lot of men are probably frustrated with that because she was literally chosen as a DEI candidate because she was an African-American woman. So instead of having a meritocracy here in this country, we're choosing the second most powerful person in the country based on their skin color. So I can see why a lot of men are frustrated, especially people that think that they could never be eligible for that position because they are a man. So I think it's rightfully so that a lot of men are not on Kamala Harris's side. I'm not surprised one bit. And we kind of saw this with Hillary Clinton in 2016, but I think it's much worse with Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Let's look at the campaign funding, because what I find amazing is that Kamala Harris's campaign is starting to dive at the moment, yet her campaign has reportedly raised more than 3 times as much as Donald Trump's just in September, and her combined campaign and affiliated groups has passed the $1 billion mark. Alex, what does that tell you about the amount of money that is being raised and that is being spent and why it's just not working for Kamala Harris?
Well, it's not working for her, but here in Texas, Ted Cruz is in a tough race with Colin Allred, and Colin Allred has gotten over $11 million compared to Ted Cruz's $8.5 million from all foreign and out-of-state donors. So all these people are throwing money behind Kamala Harris. It's not necessarily going to be the difference that makes her win. So these people are doing whatever they can. This is the fourth quarter. This is her Hail Mary. And I really hope the American people show up and do not elect a woman that wasn't even elected by her own party. Remember, there was no primary. They just elected her by themselves. They didn't actually go out there and vote. There was no civic duty. People did not get to put in their opinion on whether or not she should be the presidential candidate. So I think that's made a lot of people frustrated. Then obviously her policies when it comes to Israel and Palestine and the war in Ukraine, people are getting very frustrated. So they can spend as much money as they want. It's not going to change the narrative this late in the game.
That's right. And people didn't like her when she was vice president, when Joe Biden was still running to be re-elected. And they're starting to come to the same conclusion. Now it's getting to the pointy end of this campaign. Let's look at some of the opinion pieces we're seeing come out now. Multiple outlets are writing about how the Harris campaign is just falling apart. This one from David Marcus at Fox News says, love him or hate him or ignore him, Donald Trump is who he is. And the voters know that's what they would be getting. But Kamala Harris remains an enigma, a vague promise of full and of high and hearty words, and almost a ghost. And ghosts don't win elections, and that is exactly why Kamala Harris is losing in Pennsylvania. What do you make of that assessment, Alex?
Well, Gabriella, you nailed it. I mean, Donald Trump is who he is. He's a wealthy guy, became a billionaire because he's a very shrewd businessman. But when you ask Kamala Harris about her upbringing, she just repeats the same moniker. Well, I came from a middle-class family. Well, yeah, that was a middle-class family living in Canada. So she's just full of it. And the American people know that. And that's what's so frustrating is that she is so fake. She's such a fraud. And you know, if she somehow wins, which I do not think is going to happen, this country is going to be heading in not just the wrong direction, but the country that, as you know it today, we're going to go and get into multiple wars. We're going to be, our economy is going to collapse. People are not going to be able to afford a home. I mean, the middle class will be deleted if Kamala Harris becomes president of the United States of America.